Thanks for joining us, and welcome to Tommy Bahama Resort's Australian expansion presentation. Sit back and enjoy. In the early 90s, Tony Margolis, Bob Enfield, and their wives mused about never leaving the beach. Their dream evolved into a hypothetical character named Tommy Bahama while asking each other, what would Tommy wear, and imagining the details of his life. Since that time, Tommy Bahama has become a reality and has since become a total island lifestyle. For nearly 30 years, Tommy Bahama has strived to create a destination where their customers can relax freely, live spontaneously, and dress effortlessly every single day. With an unwavering eye towards quality, the Tommy Bahama offering has grown to include 160 stores worldwide offering men and women's apparel, home goods and accessories, and 16 thriving restaurant and bar businesses. From days at the water's edge to elegant evenings out on the town, Tommy Bahama guests are treated to subtle textures and refined finishes that are all carefully considered and meticulously crafted. To better understand what makes the Tommy Bahama brand exceptional, it's important to note the company's guiding values that fuel and drive success. Whether you're enjoying a drink at one of their 16 restaurants and Marlin bars, or finding your new favorite style at one of their storefronts, the Tommy Bahama Group is committed to delivering high quality products and services with the following foundational values. Long live the island life. Through artistry, craftsmanship, and exceptional hospitality. Quality that transcends time. Timeless products that celebrate our rich heritage, honor your vibrant spirit, and preserve the beauty around us. Let's go someplace great, where the conversation flows as easily as the craft cocktails. And finally, relax more, waste less. We're on a journey to bring you and future generations the best of the island life. Tommy Bahama recently announced that in late 2023, the company will launch their first ever hotel in Indian Wells, California, called the Tommy Bahama Miramonte Resort and Spa. This is a natural progression of the Tommy Bahama brand, Doug Wood, CEO of Tommy Bahama, shared in a statement provided to Travel and Leisure magazine. The Tommy Bahama Miramonte Resort and Spa is a great way for us to extend our brand and give our guests the resort experience they're looking for. More than ever, Tommy Bahama's focus is dedicated to taking their guests someplace great. Through exceptional service, upscale products, and delicious food and drinks, the sky's the limit for the Tommy Bahama Group. We strongly encourage the Tommy Bahama leadership team to consider an expansion into the hospitality industry of Australia. The creation of the first ever Tommy Bahama International Hotel would align with the company's foundational values and give their customers the full island experience from start to finish. But why Australia? Let's take a deeper look at the research and data behind this unique continent. Australia's population currently sits at around 26 million people, with a 50.7% and 49.3% split between male and female. Generation cohorts are relatively evenly distributed across the population, with the majority falling in millennials and baby boomers. The country is known for its rich mix of cultural backgrounds and heritage, and is considered one of the best countries to live in the world by international comparisons of wealth, education, health, and quality of life. Looking at Hofstede's six cultural dimensions, we see the country has a low level of power distance, indicating a frequent sharing of information from all through both informal and direct communication. The country has a highly individualistic and masculine society where citizens look after themselves and immediate family, show great pride in successes and achievements, and focus on quick results. The country falls in the middle of the road for uncertainty avoidance and has a normative culture with respect for traditions, is a highly indulgent society, and has low tendencies to save for the future. Australians are often considered optimistic, and most importantly, as we think about Tommy Bahama's resort expansion, place a high importance on leisure time. Australia is in recovery from the pandemic, though it's considered one of the strongest recoveries in the developed world with a 3.7% annual growth rate. This is expected to slow over the next year to inflation, with the IMF projecting growth rates closer to 1.7%. With a blend of economic growth and greater vaccination rates, household spending has increased across the country, primarily on services. Inflation concerns remain for everyday purchases, though research shows the intention to spend on travel remains high, likely to pent-up demand. Once accounting for 40% of the country's annual growth, the value of exports almost halved during the pandemic, though Australia is set to meet pre-pandemic levels in exports next year. Jobs have almost come back across the country at unprecedented levels, though demand for workers remains high. With the travel ban lifted in February of this year, Both domestic and international travel have begun again, a critical milestone in the tourism sector's recovery as it builds back from a $147 billion loss. 2023 is expected to see pre pandemic travel levels. Australia's economy continues to feel the strain of the country's relationship with China. In a response to growing tensions, signed a free trade agreement with the UK at the end of 2021, offering greater opportunities for businesses and diversification of trade. However, the absence of high spending Chinese visitors has been greatly felt across the country, resulting in stronger reliance on visitors from other countries with lower spending habits across India. While the outlook is hopeful, the tourism sector needs almost twice as many visitors from India to break even with lucrative Chinese visitors. Additionally, Australia has faced economic impacts from the war in Ukraine, including airspace restrictions, bans on Russian carriers, and shifts in travel intentions. This slide provides a quick recap of some key current events worth highlighting as we think about this expansion opportunity. Two major cities have earned a spot on major international tourism charts. Sydney landed on both American Express Travel 2023 trending destination list and as the Lonely Planet's 2023 Best in Travel. The city of Melbourne topped UK's William Russell's friendliest cities in the world as well. A few major events occurred recently that directly relate to the country's tourism industry. First, the country's terror threat lowered for the first time since 2014 from probable to possible, citing reduced risk of attacks from extremists. At the end of November, the UNESCO released a report indicating that the Great Barrier Reef status on the World's Heritage Site list should be updated to in danger based on the latest research on the impacts of climate change. The new environmental minister argues that this on the principle that the new government is taking climate change more seriously and working on immediate improvements compared to its predecessors. It's estimated that the Great Barrier Reef contributes $4.8 billion annually to Australia's economy and supports 64,000 jobs across tourism, fishing, and research. Taking all of this information into account, what would be the most advantageous way for Tommy Bahama to expand into Australia? Tommy Bahama will begin a collaborative venture with the Royal Automobile Club of Victoria, otherwise known as RACV, particularly its resorts division. RACV has a rich history in Australia, dating back to 1903, and has hands in many different ventures, including cars, roadside assistance, insurance, travel, retail, and of course, resorts. In 1952, RACV opened its first member-exclusive resort, the Healesville Country Club and Resort, which laid the groundwork for future infrastructure builds and property purchases. As of 2022, RACV operated 8 resorts, 6 out of Victoria and 2 out of Queensland. On March 27, 2020, all RACV resorts and retail locations closed the doors for what was thought to be a temporary sabbatical due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As the continent of Australia is an island, it's become one of the most cautious, vigilant nations globally with regard to the COVID-19 epidemic. This sabbatical lasted multiple months, after which the Victorian government began to ease restrictions domestically, allowing for the reopening of all Victorian resort properties, but only for Victorian citizens with very strict protocols enforced. The pandemic took a major hit on the Australian tourism industry, as the country would not welcome back international guests until February 2022. During this time, businesses were only able to cater to domestic tourists traveling between Australian states and territories. The average tourist during this time was spending far less, as the average trip spend per traveler went from $648 in 2019 down to $385 in 2020. Some parts of the industry had almost a complete loss of tourism revenue due to lockdowns. Visitor spend was down significantly across a number of entertainment industries in 2020 as well. All of this presents a fantastic opportunity for the Tommy Bahama brand to begin resort expansion globally and start a collaborative venture with the already well-established RACV Resorts division with the goal of bringing back international tourism to Australia. This would be an equity joint venture between Tommy Bahama and RACV. Tommy Bahama, as the foreign partner, would provide capital, technology, management experience, training, brand name, and marketing, while RACV, as the local partner, will provide the facilities, knowledge of the local culture, connections to Australian government officials, low-cost local purveyors, as well as labor and staffing. The joint partnership will begin in 2023 with the newly named Tommy Bahama Cape Schanck Resort and Spa in Victoria, Australia. This 5-star resort will feature 184 guest rooms and lies next to RACV's world-renowned Cape Schanck golf course, and less than 1 mile from Fingal Beach. Slated for 2024, future expansions will include the Tommy Bahama Torquay Resort in Victoria, as well as the Tommy Bahama Royal Pines Resort in Queensland. Now, in order for this partnership to be a success, we must also assess our competition and anticipated challenges. Borders have been reopened, and the hospitality industry has been forced to have a new perspective due to the restrictions caused by COVID-19. Hotels and resorts have had to reevaluate their sanitation and cleaning procedures, as well as incorporate new precautions, such as temperature testing and social distancing barriers, in order to ensure that guests feel safe. An anticipated challenge that Tommy Bahama could face is acquiring the necessary licenses and permits to successfully operate under Australian law. According to Australian Business License Information Services, Tommy Bahama could potentially need to acquire 47 different licenses before being able to open and operate. A suggested solution to fast-tracking this process is to identify the key licenses that Australian resorts are required to obtain and hiring a license compliance team to expedite applications to the Australian government. In addition to creating job opportunities for locals, this team will ensure Tommy Bahama's schedule for opening the resort is followed and has the appropriate support if any roadblocks occur. As previously mentioned, COVID-19 has had devastating effects on Australian tourism. Closures of international borders put a stop on travel and impacted Australia's tourism industry, which heavily relied on international visitors. While domestic visitors could help fill this gap, recovery will depend on the return of international travel. In 2018 to 2019, 23% of nights spent in hotels was due to international visitors. China, India, the United Kingdom, and the United States have the highest number of tourists who visit Australia. For Tommy Bahama to be successful, it requires a constant flow of incoming international and domestic tourists, which has a direct impact on meeting financial milestones. Capital cities rely more heavily on domestic business travel and international spend. International visitors accounted for 41% of all spend in capital cities, only 10% for regional locations. To ensure that Tommy Bahama meets their financial goals, promotional marketing will be presented on popular booking sites, travel magazines, and Australian and intercontinental airlines. Based on the results of major travel booking sites such as TripAdvisor and Booking.com, Tommy Bahama has determined that it will need to compete with highly ranked resorts, both locally and globally known. World-renowned names such as JW Marriott and Sheraton offer luxury services and amenities for guests to enjoy. Both Marriott and Sheraton are known around the world, which could potentially attract more American and UK guests based on familiarity. Since Tommy Bahama is known throughout the US as well, unique experiences and added Australian culture is crucial to differentiate themselves from competitors. For example, Marriott offers the Family by JW experience, which introduces an interactive program for both children and adults to promote engagement and enrichment among guests. Tommy Bahama could create a similar experience, but take it even one step further. Offer guests the opportunity to work with Australian chefs as well as participate in art and cultural experiences led by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, such as the Gune Krune of Gippsland and the Yorta Yorta of the Eastern Murray, which are two native Indigenous tribes of Victoria, Australia. Incorporating Indigenous and European culture into the Tommy Bahama experience will set them apart from the competitors and attract both local and international travelers. Every country is different culturally, socially, geographically, climatically, and linguistically, but Australia has certain factors in a unique situation. In addition to being a continental country, meaning that it is an entire continent represented politically by one country, Australia is distinguished by its unique English accent. Although it is difficult to mention all the features of Australia, we have highlighted the most important things and features that make Australia a great country from others. Australia is a country that enjoys stability, cultural diversity, and one of the strongest economies in the world. It is the only country the size of a continent and the largest island in the world and ranks sixth among the world's largest countries by area. Australia is one of the most culturally diverse countries in the world, enriched by indigenous and immigrant cultures. Australian society believes in equality and is committed to common principles and values that enhance the Australian way of life, the most important of which are equality, freedom of expression, equality before the law, equality between men and women, and equal opportunities. Australia is world famous for its unique natural wonders, pristine beaches, dense forests, and vast deserts. Australia is a beautiful, sunny paradise, as almost every region enjoys sunny days throughout the year. We're talking about a country with some of the best beaches in the world. It is a suitable market for Tommy Bahama because it's about that island lifestyle. So the only question left to be asked? Are you ready to take the dive and live the island life with us in Australia?